if you've been following along with my Lettuce Grow Farmstand updates, you will know that I've had a complicated experience with it over the last year. Today I'm going to give you a 6-month update as well as a year scope on what I've loved, what I've liked, what hasn't worked for me, and who I think this product is actually for. So let's get into today's video. Now, I did get a question earlier this week on the previous video. If you haven't seen that, I will link it up here for you because it'll fill in some gaps that I might not touch on today. But I got a question asking when I was going to do an update, and I was planning on doing an update this week. So to the commenter, thank you for reading my mind. And I commented that I was going to do the update this week. And then yesterday I had this feeling. I was like, I'm going to do the farm stand update today. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to film it. It's going to be great. And of course, something broke. So I'm kind of glad I didn't do it yesterday, partly because I feel like in that headspace, it would have been a great opportunity for me to sit down and do this review with you, this update, and really just not dive into the positive side of stuff. So I really want to touch on that and very specifically why I think that this product isn't for everyone, and it'll make sense when we get there. But let's talk about some of the things that have improved. One of the biggest issues I had with it the last time was it just became more of a hassle daily than I wanted to maintain. So the problem there was that it was constantly overflowing with water because the roots were quite long for some of the things that we had on the farm stand. There was just no way to prevent that in a way that felt feasible for me at the time. And you could constantly get in there and trim the roots, but to some degree, it just felt like a never-ending cycle. So the first thing I did was to move it back outside, and that was great. That really kind of alleviated the part where it felt like it needed more maintenance that I would give it. Even with it being outside, there's a little more flexibility with it. And if I need to go a little bit longer than a week with dealing with it, I can. Or if I need to not trim the roots every single week, I can do that. But moving it outside was great because I just didn't have to deal with that water issue. The other thing I really had to finesse and kind of make it work for us, and is something that's still a work in process but is vastly improved, is understanding how harvesting the farm stand would work for me. And I will say the app has really done a good job at kind of progressively updating over the last year. So when you harvest something, you can mark it off that you harvested it. I can have a really good idea of how much I have on the stand, what I'm pulling from, a better scope of it without me having to go outside and count the holes and look at everything, and just a little bit more backup in that regard, but also the reminder of, hey, it is time to harvest something, or hey, this is at its best time to eat this, whatever. But the other thing with that being, we had a lot of lettuce on it for a while and we just weren't eating enough of the salads. And so it kind of has gotten to the point now where we're doing a bit more variety with stuff, and I can kind of do the cut and come method, meaning instead of needing full heads of lettuce and having to grow multiple ones, that I can utilize one or two and kind of pull a handful of things off of it as needed. The other part of that being, I've really started to just move things off of it that no longer feel like they're best served on the farm stand. So stuff like my dill, my mint. We did have a moment earlier this year where some of the herbs just really aggressively grew, and I don't think I got in there quick enough, and the roots were really long, and so they kind of intertwined, and I just had mismatched herbs. I had oregano and mint kind of combined, and it was a bit of a mess. So there are certain things that I feel are a bit overwhelming to really keep on the farm stand for an extended amount of time. Specifically spearmint. The peppermint that's been on there before has been great, but I did go ahead and move that off and kind of just realize that those herbs weren't going to work. So it's definitely a trial and error process, but we're at a point now. We have cucumber on it, we have zucchini on it, I have tomatoes on it that hasn't produced anything yet, some green beans. I have an entire order of stuff coming in today to kind of fill it, and I'm really enjoying that. I'm really enjoying having a consistent influx of veggies versus before, where it just felt like there were so many little things that I was dealing with that I really had a hard time finding the good in the farm stand. And maybe if I had left it out for the entire year, I would have felt better about it. I really wasn't quite sure, and I might not be quite sure in about a month when we're really kind of into hurricane season and it feels like there's a lot of rain. But it doesn't seem to have any issues with that. I will say the things that haven't necessarily improved, or I'm kind of wishy-washy about, is this is the second time I've had a pump issue. So the problem I ran into yesterday was that it looked like there was no power to the farm stand, and I was having issues with that. We have an outlet that's been a little bit finicky, and I thought, well, maybe we have an old cord on it. Maybe we need to replace it. Maybe it has absolutely nothing to do with farm stand. And so we did a little bit of trial and error and kind of played with it and tweaked it and tried to test all of the things that it could possibly be. And of course, at some point I just got onto Lettuce Grow into the app and just told support that the pump wasn't working because I wanted to see what they were going to tell me. And I went in and eventually we did all the stuff, we tested it, whatever. I like plugged it straight in, it should have been running. I turned the timer off, it should have been running. There were a lot of things that like it should have been running. And I went out to the garden because I hit the point where I was like, okay, well, I've messed with it for enough time. I'm gonna like step aside for a few minutes, give myself a break. I'll come back and like pour water over the top of it and figure out what my next steps what the next steps I need to do. And I will say that is the nice thing about the actual farm stand is there are a lot of kind of workarounds. If one thing isn't working properly, there are other ways to kind of finesse around it while you figure it out. But I went out there because the team had recommended that I pull off the plants and then had given me a list of kind of things to do with the pump. And I went to do it and the pump was working again. And again, I had this kind of thing this morning where I like switched the timer on and it wasn't doing it. Like after I went in and cleaned everything, and I haven't fully read what they suggested, I will go in and do that. But I went in and cleaned it because I've noticed the last 6 months, whenever, specifically with it being outside, there's just a lot more sediment at the bottom and there's kind of the gunk that really gets on the pump. So you really do have to actually harvest and clean everything. Even if you don't take all the plants off, you really just have to get in and pull everything out and make sure that all of the buildup at the bottom isn't kind of flowing through the pump. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out, or at the beginning of that process, I have already ordered a new one. But I think in the grand scheme of things, like it's outside, which is great. I live in a place where it can pretty much be outside year round without too many issues. If I have to replace a pump every 6 months, it's not ideal. The last time I replaced a pump, we're going to talk about in a second, was because it got to the point where the constant like flow of water out, I wasn't keeping up with it quick enough, and I think we burnt it out and it just kind of got inconsistent. So it's a bit of a pain when the pump dies, especially inside, because you have to wait till you get a new pump to replace it because it is so heavy with so much water, unless you want to finagle a new way to get it out. At least with it being outside today, I literally just dumped it over, let it go, refilled it, rebalanced it, did all of that jazz. But I think we're at a point now with it that I'm enjoying it and I've learned how to make it work for me. I definitely think that I'd hope that it would kind of be something that would keep consistent vegetables on hand for me, and that like I could travel and maybe come home and it would be there, but it would be something that will require maintenance even when I'm gone to some degree. So I'm not 100% sure that that's like gonna fill that spot for me, and that's perfectly okay. I mean, gardens have issues. It's not like you could just build a garden and it be necessarily any better. It's going to have its own set of frustration and things that you're going to have to deal with. But now that we have a bit more of like a consistency with what we're getting, I really think having the cucumber and the zucchini on there has felt a little bit more inspiring for me, because I like that it's not like an all at once thing, because I end up with, I've ordered lettuce and now I have all of this lettuce because it all grows at the same pace, versus the cucumber is really kind of slowly producing. So we get like 1 to 2, maybe 3 cucumbers a week. We're getting a couple of zucchini a week. So I'm really getting to utilize those without feeling so overwhelmed by it. I've also learned how it's worked for me. And I want to keep in mind with that if you're new to my channel and maybe this is the first video that you're watching and like you're showing up for a review, because I did read a comment on the last review and I deleted it. I fully stand the right to remove anyone from our community that is not serving the overall good and doesn't have all of our best hearts. And if you have very strong feelings about all of the ways that I failed in a review, please get on your own YouTube platform and write a better one. Or write one that's more applicable for you. It's not even about it being better. I think at the end of the day, if you guys have been around any of my other content, I create content about life and style. And part of that life category means I talk about mental health. I talk about depression. It's something that if I'm not actually like really focused and really honed in on my purpose and something that I've really dealt with, it can really kind of pull away from my ability to do and have the motivation that is the best version of myself. And the last 6 months to a year has really been a big hit of that for me, as I've really been finding my way through the season and finding my way forward. And that didn't provide me with the best state to really want to put in the extra effort that the garden required. And that's on me, but that's also in acknowledging if it requires more than maybe you can take on at any given time, that's perfectly fine. But that was what it is for me. I'm not here for the bro attitude of you failed, you effed up, like you didn't do all of these things, no wonder it failed for you. I'm fully acknowledging that I was in a headspace that maybe I wasn't ready for it, but I had a lower expectation for the amount of maintenance required for the farm stand than it actually requires. Now it feels a bit more manageable. I can say that it's one of those things that I feel like I will go in and out of because it does require maintenance when you're gone. You have to have somebody that's checking on it. Now, if I'm traveling and I have somebody who's house sitting, that's a thing. I don't think that everybody in my household would want to take care of it when I'm not here. I think even as simple as it is, it just isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea. But we're at a point now where I really enjoy it. I think we're getting to the point where it's starting to feel like it's more worth it to me. I always look at an investment like this of what is it really adding to my life? Yes, the price point's there. Like, what am I paying for with that? How is it making my life better? What am I looking to replace with it? Kind of digging into all of that. And I think we're getting to the point where I'm really enjoying the fact that I have that ease, that it's really just an easy way to kind of add into my routine. It makes it a bit more flexible and more fun. I really liked having, I think the biggest thing for me was having access to the fresh herbs, but the biggest part of that for me has also been I have to consistently move the herbs off the farm stand and they're kind of in other pots. Like my basil's getting to a really thick point. It gets to a point within the farm stand where the actual roots are kind of really chunky. Like you're not able to, it doesn't matter that you're cutting them off, it's just kind of expanding and it's harder to actually pull the plant out, so it's more worth it to repot it. So I have 2 basil plants that I will be repotting. My mint's done great in a different pot. My dill's done pretty decent. I put chives in a pot last year and they are still going strong, and that little bundle is just sticking up ready to go. So I think I would say that it's worth it. I really enjoy it. I think it's a matter of learning how it works for you, especially for how you're feeding your family. In my household, it's really me kind of pulling stuff off of it and doing a lot of the cooking, and then maybe somebody else is kind of utilizing it every now and again. But I had to figure out how it really works for like a solo person, because I'm the one who's really, if I'm wanting to make a meal, that I'm gonna go pull stuff off of it, that I kind of know what's there, or I'm making meals for more than just me and I can kind of utilize things. So knowing that that's how it works for us, knowing that really at the end of the day, like I'm the one primarily using it versus before where I was trying to kind of grow it for 2 people and maybe my mom wasn't wanting to make salads or wanting to utilize it in other ways. She tends to be a very quick meal eater and wants to like make a last minute dinner that doesn't have a lot of fuss, in the sense of like she's not going to chop anything. So it's been a bit of a learning curve, and now that we've gotten to the point where I can say, okay, this is how it works for me, and not really trying to like fit it into all of these pieces, I have a better idea. I don't think that I'll keep it stocked all year round. Like I said, I think it's going to be kind of an influx of how that works for me, and I would definitely recommend it. But I also think at the end of the day, there is a 90-day period that you can return it. So you can absolutely grow enough in it and kind of experiment with it enough in that time window that if you don't like it, you can return it. I don't see myself moving it back inside. I think that it's either going to be an outside or like not at all thing for me, just because that's the least amount of fuss and it just feels like less of a thing I have to keep everyday eye on. And I enjoy it a little bit more outside. Like I like going and like checking on all of the little things that are happening. But I think that covers my update. So that is all I have for you guys today. Like I said, it's not going to be for everybody. It's really about figuring out how it works for you. And depending on your mental health space, it may just be more maintenance than you want to deal with at any given time. Or it might be the thing that motivates you to eat healthy right now. You 100% get to decide how that works for you. But I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it. Other than the pump situation in the last 24 hours, which I will say, anytime I've had any kind of issue, the team has been really great at responding really quickly and kind of helping me find a solution for stuff. So if you do come up across a problem, and I've come up across quite a few, just of little things breaking, little things tweaking, little kind of finesse, they are great at responding and fixing and sending and helping you do whatever. So that is a good thing to note. Hopefully you don't have any issues, but I will leave a link to shop down below. I don't remember if I have a discount for it, but if I could find you a code or anything, I'll leave that down there as well. And yeah, that is all I have for you guys today. So if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you want more lifestyle mental health content, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I upload new videos every week, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye guys.